Hey, Teddy here. If you may recall in the past vlogs I did earlier this year, you'll notice that I'd be up in my room. And if you ever notice what's different starting in this video compared to every other vlog in the past, well, as you can all clearly see right here, what you're where you see me record right now is pretty much the new improved version of the basement where I would normally do stuff like this. You know, vlogs, duh. Anyways, without further ado, let's kick things off the bang by discussing the future of content. Like, what the fridge is going on with life as a content creator, my end, if you're all asking. Now, first of all, let's start things off with a bang by addressing what the fridge is going on with the next casual reviews with bearRimshot. Now, if you all may recall when I did my last update vlog, I did indeed mention of how that I did indeed get to complete my entire Disney movie marathon. And if I can be honest where I am right now with the next casual reviews bearRimshot, I'm currently playing through all the games of the whole Kingdom Hearts series. Starting things off with a bang with the original game. And yeah. As for what's been going on, and if you may recall in some more recent, and if you may recall when addressing the future of my YouTube channel as it is, if you know me, you know how much I love anime, what the future is after anything. Well, when addressing the future of my YouTube channel, I got ideas of not one, but two other two other shows I want to do for my YouTube channel when the time is right, including the Super Smash Bros. Files and Video Game Look Back. Now, what the fridge is going on with these shows, you only ask, well, for right now, is working on live action scripted content and concern that I feel like focusing more on casual reviews of bearRimshot at the moment. At the very least, trying to put out as many more episodes of casual reviews as much as I can, to put it lightly. Like, will the entire season 1 lineup be like? At the end of the day, it's been decided this. After the top 11 Dumpster Kingdom Hearts moments out of the way, comes, and yes, I will still be reviewing both of the Disney Infinity sequels. No Johns to that. And in between each of the reviews of both Disney Infinity 2.0 and Disney Infinity 3.0, I did consider doing an editorial on Blue Sky. I mean, I'm still going to do an editorial either way, but it's been decided on my end that it'll be a major no-brainer that at some point on casual reviews one way or another, that I knew I would want to do an editorial addressing why I think Disney should do more repertory screenings. Yes, as you guys all can honestly see, over the years, ever since I've been fresh out of high school, moving on to adulthood, I've been constantly begging the Amo Draft House, more specifically my local one in Yonkers, to do more repertory screenings of Disney stuff. But unfortunately, the major downside is that ever since my local Amo Draft House first opened its doors back in 2013, Disney, as you can tell, Disney has not been so kind in doing repertory screenings, which is a shame because To keep this long story short, how it would make sense for Disney to do more episode screenings while still being allowed to do more new releases and to work on other things in the entertainment field, like home video, streaming, like Disney Plus, video games, TV, theme parks, so on and so forth. You can tell Disney owns. Say you just subscribe to Disney Plus, right? You just want to figure out based on whatever the fridge you want to watch. And as you can obviously tell, they own a lot of content, But yeah, that's all I'm going to say at the moment. But anyways, about that. Anyways, after Disney Infinity 3.0 review is passed, comes another editorial I have in the works, this time examining on why Toys to Life video game Toys to Life genre is proclaimed dead. And then after that, well, if you know me, then you know how much I love Star Wars as much as I do Disney. So yes, people, it would be a major no-brainer that I would want to make some episodes of Casualties bearRimshot like them, where I can be heard talking about Star Wars when I want to at least dedicate episodes to things like that. And when figuring out what to do for my first episodes of Casualties bearRimshot, talking about focusing on all things Star Wars, what better way to do so would be I get to review the entire Star Wars prequel trilogy. 3 separate episodes to be more precise. And then comes my first ever Halloween episode for the show, which in the end it's been decided that I would consider counting down what I would think, in my opinion, are the top 50 greatest Disney villains not from Walt Disney Animation Studios. And then comes the finale for season, and then comes my first, and then I would end, and then comes across and then I would ending season 1 with a bang, with my first ever Christmas episode for the show being a review of Mickey's Christmas Carol. Then comes season 2. Now, when figuring out what I decided to do for the future of Casualties bearRimshot, I normally don't like to talk about such things, but it is worth addressing this before I get into more news on what I look like as a content creator. Now, Harry Henry, I know you may have heard me say this, but now it's the entire world's turn to hear me say this. Yes, when looking into the future of Casualties bearRimshot, if you know me, then you know how much I love animation. However, when talking to me about movies that I will say I can and will never consider reviewing in my life, at least, well, not on Casualties bearRimshot though, would be one based on this one animated movie released back in the 90s, distributed by Fox, called The Page Master. Like, you may be wondering to yourself, why the fridge do I not want to review The Page Master? Now, if you're a fan of Morgan Ledger and you've been a major follower of him and you enjoy his work, and knowing his stance on me, you can clearly get an idea why I wouldn't dare want to review it. But for those who don't know, well, as you can see, Morgan Ledger did put out his own review of it under Vaulting. And as it can come to my understanding on why Morgan did want to review it, I remember reading him say the comments. It comes to my understanding that Morgan reviewed it for, that regardless of his opinion on the actual movie, that there's some things that's typically missing in your typical page master review when take a look at everybody else's reviews, like Doug Walker and two more, well, he doesn't hear much of other reviews that don't talk about behind the scenes stuff, which when watching his review, at least Morgan is honest. It's one thing, at least he did not burst his bubble. At least, he did not bother going over his channel. It's kind of a long story, but yeah. In all seriousness, yeah. And how can Morgan thinks about the effect on the review of the page master, you may ask? Well, imagine if I did consider reviewing the page master. Well, I will confess that if I ever did consider reviewing the page master, I will admit that I knew I'm going to play things too soft in the level of too more. And knowing how Morgan can be with me when he wants to be, whenever, say, he and I are both dare get into a disagreement with each other or something, it can be common for Morgan to go all Chris Chan on me when he wants to be. Like, you can see of how that, while I have no problems respecting his opinions as they are when I need to be, it's Morgan on the other hand who just can't, unfortunately, And it makes me feel sad saying that, And now that I'm mentioning that I will never review the Page Master, I'm sure all of you guys who are into reviews in general are probably going to be wondering how that if I'm not going to review, if I will never review the Page Master, how can that affect me from considering doing episodes of Casual bearRimshot that was previously either A, who's anime movie reviews, or B, a vaulting episode? Okay. In spite of me saying no completely to doing a review of the Page Master, I will say, that doesn't necessarily, just because I just completely turned down and doing a Casual bearRimshot episode where I can be seen reviewing the Page Master, that doesn't necessarily mean I can't review movies, let alone do episodes, to bring ideas in episodes like this, that either A, two more, that was previously either A, he was anime movie reviews, or B, a vaulting episode. That doesn't mean I would ever consider dare turning down completely on doing a Casual bearRimshot episode that was either A, he was anime movie reviews, or B, a vaulting episode. In fact, I will admit there are movies like them that exist that either A, Tunmore, or B, Morgan Ledger did briefly do their own reviews of, which I will confess, I will admit I would be happy to put out my own reviews of when I want to. Like, if you want to hear my thoughts on, say, if you think that I would never consider reviewing anything that, if you think I would never consider reviewing any Fox titles, just because of not only my stance on being reviewing the Page Master, but also the same can also be said about where I reviewed my second editorial, well, what is it with my Blue Sky editorial that I wanted to do before, well, I have no problems reviewing stuff on Fox if I wanted to. In fact, there is one animated Fox movie that Morgan on his end did recently do of not too long ago as I'm currently recording this, which I will say I will happily do my own review of when I want to. That'll be the Simpsons movie. And if you all know me by now, then you know how much I love Disney. So you can tell it would be a no-brainer of how that I would consider putting out reviews for such movies in the future, I don't know, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tangled, Toy Story 3, Dinosaur, Atlantis the Lost Empire, Treasure Planet, and being as well as Mark, and also I would consider doing my own review of Mars Needs Moms when I want to. Can and would do my own review of Mars Needs Moms when I want to. Also, I would also consider doing my own review of the Goovenians. And I would also consider doing my own review of Up. And oh yes, right. Being as somebody who is some major Dr. Seuss fanboy, which can bring a legit reason, what brings me to support Morgan Ledger. Not sure, which I'm not going to lie about. Yes, I will be reviewing all the Dr. Seuss movies, most of them, to put it lightly, including both movie adaptations of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Cat in the Hat, What Is for Who, and The War Rats. As well as whichever other ones that get to be made as long as, they come out on DVD. Yeah. As for whether or not I would ever consider reviewing the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, not going to say no to it completely, but not going to say yes. I guess you could say that if you were to ask me whether or not I would ever consider putting on my own review on the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, I'm going to leave that as a maybe at the moment. Just a maybe. And being as some Star Wars fanboy, major no-brainer right here that I would consider putting my own reviews on both Return of the Jedi and the original holiday special, Star Wars holiday special, both of which I will review for Season 2. Now, for how I would see myself doing Season 2, I will say, in terms of doing Star Wars episodes, will be when I will not only get to review the entire original trilogy, including the original one from 1977, Empire Strikes Back, and yes, Return of the Jedi as well. As well will also be when, and during the Christmas season for Season 2, I would put out my own reviews on both of the currently existing Star Wars holiday specials, both the original one and the Lego one. But yeah, for one, I will begin working on both Video Game Mode and the Super Smash Bros. Files as well. First things first is I knew I would put out as many more casual bearRimshot as I can. And once I complete Season 1, is when I can finally begin working on the Super Smash Bros. Files while still continue to work on as much casual bearRimshot content again as long as I live. As for what's going on with Joey, he's still officially my editor for Casual's bearRimshot, but I feel like, that for the rest of Season 1, I'm going to be doing all the editing as much as I can. Whereas Joey is one who can help me with that when Season 2 gets in, which won't be a long while, we'll say. Long story, but yeah. As for where I am with parodies, I will say this. But the next one I'm going to be releasing, there's some time for the Halloween season this year. I will be putting out a Steamed Hands Disney Villains dub. Pretty exciting stuff, I will say. pretty exciting stuff. And and um, and also, and, and yeah, and if I can be completely honest on where I am with Ariel's transformation, as I promised myself I would do when I came, one way or another, well, if you don't see me put up as many vlogs I want to throughout the whole entire summer time this summer, that's because, as if I can be honest, where the fridge I am right now, when I'm not making videos, back when Easter earlier this year has passed, I recently got myself a job not too long ago, where basically, yes, I'm getting paid, and yeah, and for those who don't know, yes, people, whether you all like it or not, I'm still going to put out as many more aerial transformation pairs as I can. But what am I going to, but say I get to a certain point in time once I'm able to release my uncensored transformation video onto my YouTube channel. What the fridge will be next after that on behalf of aerial transformation pairs? Well, that is a big option, and of course, one way or another. Now, when looking ahead into the future of aerial transformation parodies, it's being decided I'm going to do it in not one, but two patterns. The first one being, after Aries out of the way, I would do someone from Disney, then do someone not from Disney. By Disney, I mean more Disney original, like those so-called beautiful girls or women who Disney create themselves, without help of Pixar, nor Marvel, nor Lucasfilm, nor even Toy Story Fox. Under Disney name, like Walt Disney Animation Studios, Disney Toon Studios, Disney TV Animation, and in some degree, Toy Story Pictures as well. And yes. And then the second pattern would be, when working on non-Disney girls, there'll be. Now, for the first non-Disney girl I would do a Mario character. And then the second non-Disney original, to be more precise, would be someone from a comic book. And then this third non-Disney girl in general, I would consider working whoever the fridge I want. That's neither Disney original, nor Mario, nor comic book. Like, you may be all wondering for yourselves, what is next for Air Transformation Craze after Ariel? Well, after Ariel, I knew it's going to be a major no-brainer for me to do Jane's Return to Neverland. And yeah, Jane's next after Ariel. Well, not only does she hit me home completely, but also, when you hear me say that I would consider making Jane Darling's transformation, not only would it hit me home, but also you guys in general who enjoy my work on crossovers as well, particularly more older crowd, as well as if you're one of those adult Disney fans who clearly have nostalgic memories of watching Return to Neverland. And yeah, Jane Darling transformation will still happen. However, something I've been saying a lot is that when it comes to doing more community events at my local Dobbs Ferry, I've been saying of how that, the way that things can be with with my next event, I plan to do there being invested to that on feast screening of the Muppets. But what the fridge makes it worth the wait, you may ask? Well, say if I can handle pre-show for my best 2011 feast screening the way I want it to be. Of course, I will admit it will be a no-brainer that I will want to put as much Return to Neverland-oriented content as I can. This not only can include stuff like Jim Darling's transformation, but also stuff like My Steamed Ham's Return to Neverland dub, as well as some old trailers and commercials relevant to Return to Neverland. Like, if you're ever curious why the fridge I would want to put up as much Return to Neverland oriented content as I can, most, content like why, I would want to put out. I would want to include, would want to wait till it's my best 2011 feast screening of the Muppets that I will include by making sure I get to these James Jarman association on my YouTube channel. That's because, if you're familiar with if you're one of those people who have seen epic battles and you have nostalgic Rosewood, you can clearly get an idea where the fridge is going with this. But for those who don't know, most people who I know who have seen these movies, at least one or not all, depending on who the fridge you talk to, well, can forever recognize seeing a lot of Jane in there, And yeah, that's Jane in a nutshell, and yeah. It's one of those creative decisions like this I get to be made for these movies, which I will say I can most certainly be strongly agreeing on, If you know me very well personally either way, then you know how much I adore the character and I wish to see more of, one way or another. And, and then after Jane comes Princess Peach. And then comes Jasmine. Then comes Mary Jane Watson. From Marvel. Like, why the fridge do it that way? I mean, I know what you're thinking here. Yes, Disney owns Marvel. But as I said earlier in this video, that would merely say that there would be this pattern I would make up of how I handle myself funding for more animation creators to come up on my YouTube channel, those areas on my YouTube channel, there'll be a pattern like this. There'll be this pattern that I do something. Like the next one I would do someone from Disney, someone from not Disney. When I say that, I mean the Disney side of things, mostly Disney original. There's stuff from Pixar, Marvel, and that kind of stuff. I would kind of save that mostly for the non-Disney side of things. For as you can see, yeah, it's no secret about the fact that it does indeed own things like Pixar and Marvel, but I feel like it would be less stressful for me personally But anyways, and then after Mary Jane comes Belle, then comes Daphne from Scooby-Doo. Now, for the next couple of Disney original girls, will include in no particular order. We'll include more demanding ones. We'll include events for pre-show, like Lonely, for the Black Cauldron, Mulan, Tiana, Rapunzel, Queen Elsa. And yeah, for the non-Disney side of things, after I fun for definitely on the other non-Disney side of things will come along. Just Daisy, Daisy for the Mario games. Then for the non-Disney side of things will include Wonder Woman. Then comes oh yes, right. And then next will come Merida, the Brave. Though it's Pixar could get there, which I might a good idea, but yeah, anyways, then comes Rosalina, then comes Starfire, then comes oh yes, right, and then comes my own version of Alex Johnson, and also among the first batch of girls I would do exercise praise of with my YouTube channel would include Missy from Pokemon, Sam and Toby Spies, and yes, I will do one for Pauline from the Mario games as well too, and yeah, as well Sarah Mars and more coming, yeah. And then, as for what's next for vlogs, well, as I promised myself before that I would do a 2017 vlog one way or another, and for the record, folks, yes, a vlog where you can hear me share my thoughts 2017 as this will still happen eventually. Depending, on my entire work schedule and home living schedule too. And a number of other things, but yeah. And then after that is when I can finally be free to review, free to do a vlog sharing my thoughts on Star Wars Celebration of both 2019 and share my thoughts on Celebration as it is from 2019 going on to 2002, where not only will I consider share my thoughts on whatever new things that get to be announced to be out from Star Wars from start of 2019 to present day, but also, yes, I will also be talking about how I've been with life as a Star Wars fan of my own in a nutshell. A general person speaking. And then, if I can be honest about myself, whether or not I will ever do a vlog, share my thoughts on E3 this year, as much as I would have loved to, I technically can't. Well, only because as you can see where things are E3 this year, there's no E3 this year, but there would be next year. Well, yes. And, that's all the news I have for today. And now I've got more things to address. This time, let's continue on with my Steam Tams FAQ, for I will admit there are certain things about the groundwork of Steam Tams I will admit I brainlessly forgot to mention in the last episode. Oops. But here we go. Now, if you may recall when I did my last update vlog, I did a Steam Hams FAQ answering all the questions about my own personal work on Steam Hams as much as I can. However, what I will admit I did not get to mention by accident in the last update vlog while answering the questions and introduction to Steam Hams, well, two things. Now, if you may recall when I did my last update vlog, I did address all regarding, why the fridge even dared bother using his Guardian's face once again in my last Steam Hams Captain Hook dub. Which is kind of a long story, I will say. But what I will say here in this video is that, well, what I can and will say here in this video is that, if you may recall when I did my last update vlog, I did address the diverse of different signs that can be made, and how you can tell somebody did in fact commit the crime of glorifying his Guardian, let alone just simply enabling him, to put it lightly. However, there's one sign I will say I didn't know in particular that I'm sure some people would want me to put up, which, for whatever reason, one way or another, I did not bother putting up on there, and for the better I do so. Now, as you can clearly see when you read through the diverse of different signs of how you can tell that somebody does in fact glorify his Guardian, is that I did not put up I did not count in as mentioning his name. And like I was saying before, for the better I keep it that way, whether you all like it or not, so no giants to that. But why would I not consider counting that? Well, hate to break it to you, especially going to the Virtual Source Gaming out there if you're all watching this. But there is technically a clear difference between glorifying somebody or something and mentioning someone and something, whatever. Now, if I were to be the one glorifying the Guardian of all people, then obviously I would be simply enabling him, let alone acting like everything he does is right, which in reality that would be just wrong for me to do. Anyways, whereas mentioning would mean it can be done in any way, shape, or form. However, it should be clearly obvious to the whole entire world that I do indeed hate Azuchi Guardian. I hate Azuchi Guardian, up to the point that God who knows, and I mean God who freaking knows, I could have honestly wished death on Azuchi Guardian if I ever wanted to. Sorry I say that, but it's a clear reminder to people like them who honestly just brainlessly have no idea why they're doing so. Now, to quote Animat, it's times like this where, I'm just doing my job, Especially imagine if I were to consider engaging myself in a situation like this where I would feel like being disrespected in any way, shape, or form, one way or another. Just not to speak up for myself when something in me would go horribly wrong, one way or another, And to keep this long story short on how I can tell that Azuchi Guardian enablers can technically do exist, one way or another, it all boils down to what people like them think about me personally, critically, To sum it all up in a nutshell, it's like what George Lucas on his end said best in a nutshell. And when you go get to make a movie or whatever, all you do is nothing but get criticized. You can't experiment. That's me in general when summing up, when getting understanding of my own how the fridge, you can tell that his regarding neighbors tend to exist, on how it ended up being all a flat out lie that everybody just goes, reality, not everybody does. For it can and would obviously clearly come to my understanding to this point in time that I get a lot of hate in life. I get too much hate in life. That's why I've been very hesitant to believe such things to begin with, For, that's what the famous saying that I won't believe until I see it to be for what. However, imagine if the same exact thing can also technically be said about Wheatley of all people, all depending on a troll by troll basis in this context. I'd be just as hesitant as much as I can be as its guardian. Maybe not even more so than as its guardian, but like I was saying, if the same exact bullcrap can also be said about Wheatley, it can and would all depend on a troll by troll basis. For with something about its guardian was to exist, I'd be lying if I did not admit about myself that there was way many more troll problems than how I can be given credit for. And, but yeah, as you can see when you check out my Steam cams Captain hooked up as it is, you'll notice of how that I didn't call Onic out. Well, that's because Onic, he's mentally ableist. He's mentally ill. And the thing that always bugs me about Onic in recent memories is that, you can tell he brainlessly has no understanding of my kind of creativity as it is, I mean, yes, I will say it. I can be agreeing with you. I agree with you that, yes, I will admit Onic it for whatever reason you're watching this. I most certainly can be agreeing with you that both Ariette and Devontae Jones are both bad news, and whereas people like Mike Dutton, good news. Gordon Mrs. Summers, on the other hand, I'm not going to act like she's one of my favorite teachers. She's not. But, even I had to learn the hard way that there is nothing wrong with, doing things pertaining to arts entertainment in general, or something more than just hobbies, That's where, you would all hear me openly admit about myself of this so-called creative disability I have. Like, you're obviously wondering to yourself, what the fridge is this so-called creative disability I keep speaking about regardless of what I want to do both publicly and privately? Okay, then, now, as you guys can also tell when living my own creative life as it is, I tend to be more nostalgia-oriented. Meaning, in other words, I tend to be more nostalgia-oriented. In other words, it's not only legit reasons why if I had a living life as a songwriter that I can be considered an arranger, more so I can't ever be a composer, but also it's legit reasons why I have that. I love to make parodies, I love to work on my own personal crossover projects, as well as legit reasons why of how I wanted to get into game design that I would always like to make nothing but crossover games. And on top of all of that, it's also the same exact reason why of how that whenever I feel like being A, I might work on the draft house, or B, I might look to do any movie screens in general, that I love doing more what they're called repertory screens. Now, for those who don't know what the phrase is, repertory screen, basically it's pretty much all theatrical screens of more older movies, While speaking about that, I will say the Draft House will be where I do community free screens of movies I like that aren't part of, the entire Disney Plus collection. Whereas Look, on the other hand, would typically be where the screenings of movies that I will say I do indeed enjoy watching on Disney Plus. This can include things such as the original, Pixar, Marvel, the non-Sony stuff, Star Wars, Spaceball stuff, and Fox and the Muppets and that kind of stuff. And yeah. And before I can close off this summer's update vlog, let's all finally get into discussion regarding Mr. Ben. Why the first beginning of this video? Well, not only would this mark 10 years ever since I ever first became a part of the Westbrook community, but also considering what a mental neo-Nazi Morgan can be when he wants to be. Yeah, that's Morgan Ledger in a nutshell. He would do anything to enable Holocaust denial when he wants to be. But anyways, let's talk about Mr. Ben, shall we? Yes. For those who don't know, if that name sounds familiar to you, then you may recall that in the past I have openly expressed my own personal gripes against him for the way he treated me. Like, why the fridge would I continuously hold so-called grudge against Mr. Ben for the way he treated me? What made me want to hate on him in the end of the day? Okay, then. Now, it all started way back when I first came to Westbrook, right? He may seem like a nice guy to be around at first. But then as around, say, fall, but then, when you're mid to, but then when mid to late fall, the second half of fall 2012 kicked in. This is where, well, everything changed between me and him. Like, what happened to me? Asked, well, one day I was going on a nice, beautiful walk around the local community, right? Down in Westbury, right? Anyways, Mr. Devon and I were both enjoying a nice chit-chat about stuff between me and him. But then I neglectfully revealed certain events that would occur behind the scenes while at the house. But then, as I was about to walk back to the school building at Westbrook itself, this is where I spoiled certain things. I leaked certain information that I picked out. Mostly boiling down to that, the part where, that people from Westbrook would be in it, thus getting a number of Westbrook staff members plus a student by the name of Ross Hanson always harassing me bugging me to make some name changes, which I knew I had to say no to. Even Dante himself would want me to do that. That's why I had to do that. Like, why the fridge would I decline such things? Well, let's just say it truly defeats the point of crossover point B, And yeah, when Mr. Ben was my social worker, where he would continuously hold pointless grudge against me for a number of things I did, for better or for worse. Like, for example, now, if I can be honest, where in the fridge I got the idea to blame Mr. Ben for ruining my friendship with Morgan Ledger of all things, well, let's just say, Mr. Ben on his own used to hold grudge against me for one of the many things Mr. Ben would hold grudge against me for would be regarding something I did to Morgan all those years ago, being a video I wanted to share with him, mainly because, we're both Dr. Seuss lovers. Now, the reason why I've been calling Morgan as an ableist of all things is because, what Morgan Ledge on his end continues to brainlessly fail to understand me when he wants to do that, talking to Morgan about where it stands on me, you can tell that he and a number of people on my fan base love to think of me more when I was once a so-called. Now, for whatever happened, let's be real here. Whatever happened in 2013 happened in 2013. Whatever happened in 2018 happened in 2018. So there's no reason to continue to hold grudges against me over this one mistake I did. But everybody makes mistakes. And and back when it would still be 2013 of all things, I will admit, you do have to recognize that I was still young and a slave teenager attending to residential school. Now, ever since 2013 has passed, things have changed in me as much as I can. Like, for where I am right now, I will say, as I made myself perfectly clear as the passages I made, if you're smart enough to pay attention, that I'm no longer the silly teenager attending to residential school I once was. Now I'm currently doing independent living in my 20s at the moment. So there's no reason for this continuous childish drama to continue, I'm tired of feeling disrespected, but moving on, and then, of course, another thing Mr. Ben would hold grudges against me for was when we here at Mr. Productions as a whole didn't consider including his actor, not just his name, but also likeness too. I mean, yes, during the events of the making of Epic Bounce to him henceforth, as he was considered, but he'd be nothing more than just a tip of the iceberg. Also, other characters at the time both old and new. Long list, actually. And, yeah. And another thing I did that Mr. Ben would hold grudges against me for would be when I called Ruth Fernandez out for the way she treated me when we were both classmates attending to school at Andrus, when the Boston bombing occurred. Yeah, when it comes to Ruth Fernandez, I will say, I never really liked, I will say, She's such a lunatic, And it doesn't help either that Mr. Ben would, Mr. Ben, what do you call it? Oh, yeah, sorry. Would lie about Adam at swearing. Or as Miss Ellen did point out when she was in my social here at Westbrook, more of a misunderstanding, but still, I just cannot help but feel like, when it comes to Mr. Ben, when he was my social worker, he brainlessly had no idea what he'd be doing to me, However, Mr. Ben wasn't the only social worker I had when I was at Westbrook. First one being Miss Sauber, she was great and sweet and humble to work with. At least I got someone who's left-handed. And then, of course, you got Miss Brett. Not only was she great to work with, but also supported me as much as she could be, despite, some negligence on her end. But yeah. And then came along Miss Ellen, which I will say if I had any favorite memories working with her. She is worth the thanks to teach me on how that there is a difference between lying and misunderstanding, thus giving me the idea to eventually call out people like Gail Corver, Alexander Bell, and like mixtape retards. Like, why would I do that? They think I'm lying, which in fact I never did. More so of either misunderstanding or just said things bozos like them did not like hearing me say one or another. They're just looking to see potentially all Christian style. They're just a bunch of Christians, but yeah. And yeah, well, even though I already made myself perfectly clear both publicly and privately about my distaste against Mr. Ben, if I can be honest on who I would regard as my least favorite staff member at West from the entire Westwood community, at least when I was there. Now, if you think Mr. Ben is that bad, well, there's somebody quite sadly got to be there for even worse than Mr. Ben. That is, I'm talking, of course, of Miss Maggie. Like, what the frick is wrong with her? Well, something I've been telling Nick privately via video when I had to have my video chats with him is that, well, that from my personal experience with Miss Maggie, that can be just me, that she doesn't seem to care about the kids she gets to work with. Like, I remember when engaging with Miss Maggie when I was a student at Westbrook, I can tell when in reality when she was working there, that she doesn't seem to care about the people she gets to engage working with in places like that. And before I can even close off this season's update vlog, there's one more thing that needs to be said. This time it's regarding polls. See if this were to be me recording this when July kicks in. As you can clearly expect at first, you may be expecting, as you can tell, you may be expecting that I would consider doing something like a Fortnite Viewer Choice. Well, if I can be honest where I'd be with that, well, let's just decide that I'm going to take a break from such things. However, if you want to participate in more polls like a toast, great news for me to say this. Now, as you can all obviously tell, this year in 2022, as I'm currently recording this, would mark 9 years ever since I first opened up my YouTube channel. Next in 2023 comes, that would be where I would hit the double-digit mark of life as a YouTuber. Now, what the frick do I have in mind with that? Well, let's just say, for the first time in a while, I would do another feedback poll where I get you all of your wonderful feedback regarding not only what you all look forward to, but also what you like about me. And on top of that, oh yes, right. And also, by popular demand, I will address my life as a Patreon supporter over the diverse consequences I enjoyed both past and present. Also coming soon, I will be putting out my own personal mega gaming poll, so be on the lookout for that. And I rest my case. Hope you all had the happiness of Father's Day, and hope you have a great summer, and be sure to look out for more content. It's Teddy signing out. Bye-bye.